Okay, so we knew this conversation was coming. It was inevitable. At some point, we were going to have to get pretty deep into the conversation about VR and possibly Nintendo doing VR and looking into the hardware. It's actually been brought up before, even by Nintendo. Recently, coming out of E3, there were some quotes and comments from Miyamoto himself discussing how he had checked out VR at the show, found it to be fairly interesting, but still not quite sure about the future of VR and how it could be applicable to, long-term gaming sessions and some of the more hardcore kind of gaming applications and the things that even Nintendo does as a company, which was pretty interesting. He said good things about it. But, kind of made it seem like Nintendo may be considering it, but it isn't quite there yet. Now, we have to remember that even a year or two ago, probably last year, Nintendo, and it might have even been Satoru Iwata in the last couple of years, I could be wrong about who it was, but somebody, Miyamoto, Reggie, Iwata, someone had also at E3 looked at VR when it was first being shown off. It might have even been, now that I think about it, at TGS when Sony first showed it off as Project Morpheus. It could have been then. Regardless, at some point, someone from Nintendo had looked at VR at that time as well and basically said the same thing. So what's interesting is these quotes came out of E3 from Miyamoto, but it's literally echoing what has already happened. One of those guys from Nintendo looked at VR at a trade show or a convention in the past and said, hey, it's pretty cool, it's neat technology, but we're not ready to look into it because we don't know how it fits into gaming. And so now that Miyamoto has said basically the same thing again from E3, people are starting to wonder, does this have to do with the NX? Does this mean that Nintendo is confirming, or Miyamoto is confirming, that they actually are looking at VR, whether it's for pretty soon, like something like the NX, or if it's for something a couple of years down the road where they're finally thinking maybe we want to start implementing this? First thing, no, I don't think that they're seriously considering VR. Some people have read these quotes from Miyamoto as some sort of pseudo confirmation that Nintendo might be looking into seriously doing VR. But I'm on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. To me, he's basically only confirmed that they're not yet looking at it. It's great because of what he said about VR not being applicable to long-term gaming sessions and to the everyday average gamer is the exact reason why I think the concept of VR is cool, but the reason I've been poo-pooing it, if you want to call it that, the reason I'm not really into it yet is because I don't see how it's going to be applicable to the real kind of traditional gaming that I like to do and that most of you probably like to do. It's just too disconnecting from the world around you. And I might make another video where I really go in depth. I did a couple of months ago, I made a video discussing my thoughts on VR, but that was before it started to even become a little bit more of a reality like it is nowadays, so I probably should do that again. But anyway, he confirmed basically what I thought, is that it just doesn't make sense yet. Maybe when they perfect it down the road or something like what the HoloLens is supposed to be, that might catch on in the right way. And I like the idea that he said that because I don't quite yet want Nintendo, my favorite company, to just go all into this VR concept. I mean, I'm even sketchy about Sony doing it. I'm worried that as much as I'm trying to maintain faith in Resident Evil 7, I'm worried that they're, going to maybe potentially ruin a franchise or a new game in a franchise by making it so focused on the VR experience that they compromise what makes the game good. And if that ends up being true, it could be something that becomes more and more common with other games and other franchises and other projects where it's like, well, you probably could have made a good game, but instead you were too worried about this VR thing, and now you've made it something completely else and something that isn't probably good. So I just don't see a world where Nintendo is quite yet ready to do it. But VR does kind of exist in that realm of changing the game experience and trying to do something more immersive for the player, which is typically what Nintendo does like to do. So if Nintendo were to consider using VR in the future, again, I don't think it's something happening soon, but if they consider it in the future, would it make sense for them to do so? Could they make VR interesting? I'm going to say only with a small amount of confidence, yes. I don't think that it's a 100% thing that they'll do it, and I don't think it's a 100% thing that they will knock it out of the park. And the Virtual Boy doesn't really count in this conversation because the Virtual Boy, most of you know the weird story, and it was just something where it was ahead of its time, and they didn't quite yet know how to make a virtual reality concept work the way it was envisioned back in the 90s when we thought it was all the Lawnmower Man stuff. Nowadays, the technology exists for actual VR that makes sense for many different applications. Maybe small gaming session experiences, maybe. So because of that, I think that it's more apt to consider companies, like Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, Oculus, HTC, and Valve, any of these other companies that might ever want to delve into VR, it makes sense to have a real discussion about it because VR actually exists close to what we always thought it could be back in the day. So Nintendo, I do think that they could do cool things with VR. Yes, I absolutely do. But I still don't know if they could change the game and make VR something that really does make sense for real gaming. I mean, my whole thing is when you put on a VR helmet, and I've yet to do so. Again, full disclaimer, I've brought this up many times. I do very much want to try it. I make all of my claims about not being interested in VR based on not having tried it, and I always give that disclaimer, so that's part of what I'm doing here. But when I look at it just conceptually, I don't think that playing it would ever change this concept. Putting a VR helmet disconnects you from everything and everyone around you. I mean, they have the little earpieces. You need to be able to hear it through your headphones. You're covering your vision with the screen. And I'm sure that that's super cool. Like, I really do believe it's probably cool to be like, wow, this is amazing. Try it, good friend. Okay, let's put it away now and play real games. To me, that's what VR is. Because you put that on and all of a sudden you can't do anything else but just be in that world and be doing that. And I can't imagine playing like a new Zelda or The Witcher 4 or the next Elder Scrolls or Fallout or Grand Theft Auto in VR, sit down for 3 or 4 hours at a time with this helmet on and these headphones on, and you can't see or hear anything. What if your friend or your significant other or your parent, if you're a young kid, needs to get a hold of you and like you're wearing this helmet? What if you get a phone call? What if your house catches on fire? What if someone's knocking at your front door? And let's say you live alone or you happen to be alone and you've got this on for 3 hours. You don't know what the hell's happening. And it's, trust me, not going to be convenient to be playing a game and be like, oh, I'm going to check my phone, and then have to be like, lift this thing up and grab your phone, and then, oh, did I hear something? And have to take this thing off and be like, did I hear something? Oh, no, I'm okay. And then re-engage. I mean, I know that they're probably comfy, and it's not hard to slide them on and off, but it's so many extra steps. It's like you're also mentally disconnecting yourself from the world as well as physically lifting a thing off of your head just to look at your phone or just to do whatever. And it just, again, it's not like I'm not so lazy that I wouldn't be willing to do those things, but what it does is it completely complicates the otherwise incredibly simple task of sitting down in front of a TV, holding a controller, and just going, where you can interact with everyone. You can talk and see and look at your phone and hear the doorbell, know if your food is ready or whatever you need to frickin' do. You can just do it also while gaming. And it's not this, semi more cumbersome experience to put things on and off just to do those things. I mean, God, what if you get an emergency phone call and like if you're just gaming, you're going to see or hear it, just sitting next to you. You'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Let me do whatever. As opposed to like you would not be any the wiser if you were just locked in this world and you couldn't hear or see anything but the game itself. So that's the catch-22 of it's great that it can bring you into this world and make you so immersed in what you're gaming. I think that is a cool idea, and I do, again, want to try it. But how it disconnects you from everything else, I just don't know if it's a worthy trade-off. And I feel like what would happen is I'm willing to bet in another couple of years, people are going to discover that this is an issue. It might only take a year or two before people start to realize, I don't want to play a VR. I don't want to get so locked into this world and so disconnected from anything else. And let's say someone has to get a hold of you, and this is evidenced by, I totally have turned this into a VR conversation, whatever. It's evidenced by actually a video that PewDiePie made a couple of years ago where he was playing on like one of the, Mark 1 Oculus Rifts in the dev kit form, and he's playing a scary game because that was the big hot thing, is to play scary games in VR, and it made for really entertaining Let's Plays, I totally admit. And he was playing a scary game, and his girlfriend came in and like tapped him on the shoulder to get his attention, and it fucking rocked his world. It was so scary. It made the video very funny. It was a great video. But when you look at what he went through, it's like the shock of being so locked into this world. Granted, playing a scary game as opposed to just like, like a Zelda or something, but playing a game locked in this world, and if someone has to get a hold of you, it could probably scare the crap out of you, even if you're playing a happy game, for someone to have to like not tap you on the shoulder and you've got this thing in front of you and you can't hear anything and you're just playing. I bet that's a really jarring experience, and it's just like another dumb thing that would only happen if you're trying to play a VR game for 2 or 3 or 4 hours at a time. So anyway, I should probably bring this back to Nintendo. I know I kind of ranted. Maybe I don't need to make that VR video now because I got some of my smaller points out in this conversation. I mean, I have to admit that I would still be very curious, coming back to Nintendo, to see what Nintendo would do with VR. I don't think it makes sense for them to do it. I don't think it makes sense for a lot of companies to do it. I'm curious enough about it. I want to go to a Best Buy and try the PlayStation VR and, all these other things. And I would like the idea of having a VR to be able to show, a little 10-minute experience to my friends. To me, that's what VR is. We've discussed that before, too. It's like, really, it's the kind of thing you have just to show off to people for a couple of minutes, but then you can't just keep doing it. Because the only person even experiencing it is the person wearing the helmet anyway, so you can't share in the experience with a VR game. There's so many negatives to it, and I mean, it's cool technology, and I want it to be something that could be applicable to a wide range of gaming experiences so that I could feel like I'd want to do it, but I feel like it's too narrow and tunnel visioned of an idea to be able to really be applicable for so many things. I'm repeating myself, as I tend to do. So with Nintendo, in wrapping up, I think that they could do some cool ideas with it, and I like the idea that they're looking at it, they're giving it a shot, they're considering the technology, they're thinking, maybe down the road in a year, 2 or 3 years, maybe it could make sense for us to do something, and so we're looking at it now. That's great. Nintendo's always forward thinking, I think, and it's great that they're looking into this now because it is the big hot thing that everyone's talking about, but I'm willing to bet that they're being smart, hopefully, and playing the wait and see game. Let's wait and see if it actually catches on, and let's wait and see if we can learn and discover that it does make sense for the kind of gaming experiences we want to create, that we actually could do something unique and novel with VR that makes it worthwhile for us to put the money and time into it, and also to hopefully be successful so that the gamers feel like it's worth their money and time. And that's what I'm hoping they're doing. Just like Nintendo's waited to do a lot of other things, sometimes too long, like with online and DLC, but they also sometimes do it really right. I mean, their online is free and it works. It's not very in-depth like their competition, but it works and it's free. And their DLC, has been discussed many times, is the best in the biz. Like, they are doing it better than anyone. And that, controls what they do with those things, and sometimes they wait, but when they finally do it, it's great. That's what Nintendo does, and I'm hoping that that's what they're doing with VR. I would like to see them do a cool, like a Metroid Prime VR. Like, there is, those words do get me excited. The idea of being so inside of Samus's visor and experiencing a Metroid Prime world gives me goosebumps as a Metroid superfan. I'm just like, wow, what could that be like? But I still don't know that I see it being something I'd want to do for 4 hours at a time. I could be wrong. You guys, I'm going to freely admit, maybe the first time I put on a VR helmet, I'm like, screw it, I was wrong. I could do this for 10 hours straight and not care. Maybe that's the case. Probably not, though. I just don't think that that's going to be the case, and not even something like a Metroid Prime kind of game could probably sway me. But, I will try VR at some point soon. I'm very excited to do so, and when that happens, I'll finally give you my true thoughts and tell you if I feel like my worries are justified or not. With Nintendo, I don't think that they're doing anything for VR on the NX. People think the Neo and the Scorpio are being made just for VR, and I think that they are being made partly for that, but I don't think that's the real reason those systems exist, you guys. Maybe the Neo, but definitely not the Scorpio. And with the NX, I don't think VR has anything to do with it. To me, Miyamoto has confirmed Nintendo is not yet doing anything with VR, so I don't think that any gamers or Nintendo fans should expect to see a Nintendo VR come out anytime soon. If it happens, it's probably 3 years at least away. And that's fine with me, because I don't really think it's anything that they need to do, and I don't think the gaming industry needs to be focusing on it so hard. If it was like a novel thing that was just like, here's like a headset, you can play around with some VR things, that's fine. But the industry and these companies are making huge pushes for VR right now, and I guess we'll see how it plays out. I'm happy to see, I want everyone to see success, so I'm happy to say, hopefully Sony sees success, hopefully Oculus sees success, and that's fine. As long as it doesn't ruin other gaming experiences, I have no problem with it being successful. I don't want anyone to fail, and I don't want anyone to lose money and go bankrupt. I just don't. So I hope it does take off in its own respect, but I just don't think it's going to be applicable to gaming. So, and I definitely don't see Nintendo doing it anytime soon. So anyway, this conversation was kind of about Nintendo VR and kind of about VR as a whole. I did get sidetracked, but I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I think I couldn't keep it contained and focus just on Nintendo, I guess. So either way, still interesting to discuss what Nintendo might be doing with VR. Like I said, I like the fact that they were looking into it, considering it for the future, if in fact it takes off and makes sense for gaming. So what do you guys think about this? What do you think about VR as a whole? What do you think about Nintendo looking into it and what Miyamoto said about it as he was checking it out and trying VR at E3 this year? Really curious as to your guys' thoughts. Does it make sense for gaming or not? Let me know what you think below. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule 2 Review, and I'll catch you guys next time on another video.